I want to start, first of all, by thanking Terry and her staff for really working hard to forge forward with this trade show. You know, nobody knows what a virtual trade show is going to look like, and let's hope next year it's different. But they really worked tirelessly to pull this off, and I think it's really important that we show from Long Island's perspective that a pandemic's not going to stop us from moving forward. I also want to thank and welcome Bob and Russ. You know, I'm a lawyer, so I create nothing, but they create things. And Mitch, as you mentioned, with retail just dying here on Long Island and has been, and malls and sales tax revenue being decimated, the way we're going to grow back in the Long Island economy is through infrastructure spending and construction spending. And Bob and Russ are leaders in that. And we certainly appreciate them taking time out to talk to our members about the initiatives that they're working on. From my perspective, I'm here today just to talk about the transformation of the Hauppauge Industrial Park to the Long Island Innovation Park at Hauppauge. And it's been sort of a remarkable four-year journey, which I'm going to talk briefly about. You know, we have a PowerPoint. Can that go up? Well, great. So, you know, it was about 4 years ago that we started talking about what are we going to do with the park, and you know, an idea needs to catch on. And so, with the help of some very aggressive MBA students at Stony Brook, we started doing some research and taking a look. And I think the first thing we uncovered, which really caught on, was that the Hauppauge Industrial Park is the second largest industrial park in the country, second only to Silicon Valley. Now, I've probably said that a million times, but everybody says it now. And I think that was really important to get perspective of what was sitting here on Long Island. And initially, a lot of people said, well, what are you going to do? It's just a random collection of buildings. There's no common ownership. How are we going to be able to transform it? And I got that. And so we started really talking about, the first step is to show economic output. And Terry talked about economic output because that really gets people's attention. When you hear, you know, all the numbers that are coming out of the park, then people realize, hey, wait a minute, there's something to look at there. And that's all how it started. And we heard from Kelly Morris. You know, Kelly is very modest, but you know, she believed from the IDA's perspective that that there might be an opportunity to really help transform this park in some way. And we didn't know exactly how, but there might be a way to do it. And so, you know, you can have a vision, you can even have a plan, but without partners, you're never going to get anything done. And really, the IDA was a great partner because they funded it. They funded the study that needed to be done. They brought in James Lima, a very, very smart, astute planner who they had worked with before. And James has worked on projects like with Google and Facebook, sort of transforming their universities. And they got to work. And once they came out and completed the opportunity analysis, and all you guys know this, but I can't state enough how important it is to have a written plan. It's like magic happens when people have a written plan in their hands. You can talk about it. Once it's in writing, there's a roadmap to be getting something done. Once that plan came out, then really everybody got super, super excited about the possibilities in the park. Next slide, please. So step one was rebranding the park, because calling it an industrial park was so 80s that we just needed to get past this. One of the things was, people don't realize, but Silicon Valley used to be called the Stanford Industrial Park, and there's not much glitz and glamour in the Stanford Industrial Park. And when they renamed it Silicon Valley, it sort of took off. So Terry took on the daunting task of trying to figure out how to rename the park. We think we did it right. You know, the county executive is fully on board with it. So it's now the Long Island Innovation Park at Hauppauge, which I think was a good important move to be able to move this project forward. You know, we really have great partners. So another understated partner in this is Mitch and Libby. You know, he's been there shoulder to shoulder with us the whole way through this, and that's incredibly important. I don't think Long Island truly realizes what a valuable asset Mitch Pally is. I like to tease him that he was my professor at Stony Brook 150 years ago, but I don't think that people understand his tireless advocacy for these projects, and he's been there with us shoulder to shoulder. Next slide, please. So every good plan, you know, and report has certain things that have to happen. So one was economic research. So we used MBA students at first, and we did very extensive economic research, which we presented to James Lima. And then when James was doing his opportunity analysis, he went and tested and verified the economic data that we did. Now, we were nervous because, you know, we were relying on a bunch of MBA students, a bunch of future quants who had done this research, but who knew? And so when he came back and said that the data had been validated, we breathed a little bit easier, right? We needed a regional vision. So what we did as part of this was we went out to dozens and dozens and dozens of stakeholders to get their input into what this opportunity analysis could look like. We then had case studies. So we looked up in Buffalo. Again, we looked at Facebook, we looked at Google, we looked at some of the downtowns that have been revitalized to come up with what could possibly happen inside the park. And then you need an action plan. And so the action plan came out as the form of the opportunity analysis. Next slide, please. Probably the most important data that came out of the economic research. So as Terry mentioned, you know, it's 55,000 jobs, which is 1 in 20 jobs here on Long Island. It's almost 1,400 businesses, and it's $13 billion in economic output. And all of that is good, but what does that really mean? And one of the things that the group did, which I think was very important, was it started looking at what dollars are they. Not every dollar is a productive dollar. There are dollars that just circulate around in the local economy, and they're not very productive dollars. And there are dollars that come in from other places into the region, and those are more productive dollars. So we were introduced to this concept of tradable sectors, right? And prior to that, we didn't really know much about tradable sectors. You know, it's funny. I have a lot of conversations now with elected officials, and they say Campolo and his friggin' tradable sectors. But it really is an important point. A dollar that comes in from an outside source into our region is much more valuable to us than a dollar that just circulates around. And so they drilled down on these tradable sectors and what they mean. And the little chart here shows you just truly what a gem the Innovation Park is. So as you can see in the United States, you know, tradable sectors account for, and that's the blue line that you're looking at there, and they account for about 36% nationwide in any regional economic hub. So if you look nationwide at regional hubs, about 36% of the dollars that are output are what they call tradable dollars. They're coming in from another region, and the goods are being transported outside of that locality. Long Island as a whole is really behind the national trend at about 24–25% as a whole. And that makes sense, right? We had a very high retail base and malls and strip malls. And so all those dollars just circulate locally and don't really grow. Inflation chips away at those dollars. You know, but what we realized, and you can see on the graph there, is the Innovation Park at Hauppauge, we blew away even the national average. We blew away even the national average in terms of, you know, 55–56% of them being tradable dollars. And that's the heavy manufacturing biopharma concentration inside the park. And that means that those dollars become much more valuable to the Long Island region than other dollars. Next slide, please. So when you look you see the key clusters that exist inside the Innovation Park of aerospace, biopharma, construction, education, food, IT, finance, distribution, and business services. Um, those are all great because, and we've seen, manufacturing during COVID was deemed essential, and so those wheels kept running. A lot of the other services were able to work remotely, and so business as usual sort of went on. And the economic research key strategies. So what were the strategies they were looking for? How do we strengthen the park to facilitate business growth? Of course, we want to outpace inflation at all times in our businesses. Importantly, attract and retain knowledge workers. So the thing about tradable sector jobs is they are much more high-paying jobs than non-tradable sector jobs, and so we need to attract and retain knowledge workers. We need to strengthen training and workforce development. So as the economy pivots, and it's going to be very important now post-COVID, there's a lot of pivot going on. We need to make sure that we are training our workers to embrace it. Promoting innovation and technology transfer, and connecting business, government, and institutions. And I think honestly on Long Island, I just want to say one thing. Honestly, on Long Island, in such a partisan national time, here on Long Island, particularly during COVID, but even beforehand, just to get these initiatives done, we've seen such great bipartisan efforts across all phases of government to help get these initiatives moving forward. So the next slide, please. The next slide is really, really important, I think, because I'm a visual guy. But when you look at Long Island, I think one of the challenges that we have had here, and there's been so many different initiatives that have tried to sort of break down these fiefdoms, is you look at it and we have, starting out east, Brookhaven National Lab, and they just brought in their $2 billion ion collider, which is going to be amazing. Then you have Stony Brook University, Northwell, Cold Spring Harbor Lab, NYIT, Hofstra, Farmingdale, Suffolk Community College, all in those clusters, and right in the center of it all, literally right in the center of it all, the nucleus there is Hauppauge and the Innovation Park. And so really the vision of this opportunity analysis is how can we use the Innovation Park, right, to foster a lot of the technology and great stuff that's coming out of these amazing worldwide institutions that we have here. And so to look at it and realize, hey, we're right at the center of it, literally, is really important and really kind of cool. Next slide, please. So from a regional vision, we're striving, and I think we're making a lot of progress in 3 areas as we move forward with this initiative and this task force. We want policy alignment. So, we want to make sure that the policies are aligned with government priorities and regional trends. And that's why it's so important for the next circle, our partnerships, right? So public-private partnerships have been critical to us. Input from the stakeholders have been incredibly important to us, which is great. And we want competition. So, to breed efficiency, to breed profitability, and to breed growth, you need competition. And so that I think has been really, really important. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So every good plan needs action items. They need recommended actions. So when the plan first came out, there were a bunch of recommended actions that came out with the different actors. So there were government roles, and there was HIA-LI roles, and there was private sector roles, and we sort of segmented them and whiteboarded them out and put Post-its up next to each of them to figure out how could everybody really work towards transforming the Innovation Park. And we broke it down into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. From the HIA-LI's perspective, one of the immediate things, and my hat goes off to Terry because I tease her all the time about it, was working to getting signage, right? So branding is very important, and getting tombstone signage and nice signage has been a very important initiative, and Terry's made great progress on that, and we want to thank the Damianos group as well for helping us with the signage initiative. That's been great. Sewage expansion. So hats off to the county You know, here on Long Island, you can only build where the sewers go or the treatment centers are. And the initiative to get the park fully sewered has been arduous, but we're forging forward with that. And I think that that's incredibly important. From the government perspective, they run the zoning, right? They run the zoning. There's no way around that. And so part of us having this opportunity analysis was really to start lobbying the town of Smithtown as to what we needed or what we thought would work, and that's gone incredibly well. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you got to have builders who believe and who want to invest into projects, because you can have the greatest plan in the world, but if people aren't willing to put money up for it and put the time in for it and invest in it, then you don't have anything. And I think that's where Mitch and his members have been incredibly important, because without their buy-in, without them saying, yeah, if this happens, it's something that we would be interested in investing in, then what are we doing, right? What are we doing? We're doing nothing at that point other than an academic exercise. So all of that was was incredibly important. So next slide, please. So first stop was the town of Smithtown. And, I have to tell you that I have been incredibly impressed. Supervisor Wareheim ran on a platform of Smithtown's open for business, but the constituents in Smithtown are tough. They're very smart, educated, well-funded people who have strong opinions. And, it took a lot of political courage, I think, for the supervisor and the town board to embrace our plan. They met countless times with us to discuss and understand exactly what we were looking to do. And what we were looking to do is a few things. If you go to the next slide, transformation of the park is not easy. If it was a vacant plot of land that a developer was going to come in and buy, well, then they could build this, right? So this was ultimately what James Lima came out with, the action plan. Ideally how to optimize and make the innovation park as efficient as possible. It would have several components. It'll have a workforce training center, greenway connections, innovation nodes, advanced manufacturing hubs, and quality of work-life amenities. And that means a live, work, play, feel, and ability inside of it. And that, 4 years ago seemed almost impossible. And today we're actually a lot closer to that. We're a lot closer to that. And it comes from, again, strength of partnerships. Partners in government, people who have courage across all lines. The county and the town have been incredibly important. So when you look at this, it's kind of cool, but you scratch your head saying, how do you get it done when there's no common ownership? Next slide, please. They also talked about a proposed social network, which is important. And pre-COVID, this was moving forward. We're going to have to wait post-COVID, but you would be amazed at how many private property owners in the park have offered up their properties for after-hours social networking events, which is great. Next slide, please. Proposed innovation spaces, so co-working spaces, incubators, and a full-blown innovation center. Those discussions are underway right now because collaboration is going to be key as we grow post-COVID. Next slide, please. And the biggest initiative, so if you think back to that slide I showed you where Hauppauge is right in the center, and this is something that's being discussed right now, and a plan is being put together right now, and we'll unveil it formally when that gets done, is having a workforce training center, located inside the park where the bulk of Long Island, workers are. That was kicked off. So the Long Island Regional Planning Council in 2019 deemed this project, the Innovation Park Transformation, won a regional significance that allowed us to obtain other grant dollars to continue to explore the feasibility of a workforce training center. You know, James Lima and the Suffolk IDA are working on that, and there'll be more to say about the Workforce Training Center coming up shortly. Next slide, please. But the biggest deliverable that we've gotten, so we've been able to get the plan done, we've been able to get signage, but the biggest deliverable came during COVID, right? So again, this goes back to political courage and determination. And we had great momentum going on this plan. And the town of SMITHTOWN on its own decided that they were going to set forth an initiative to reclassify zoning in certain areas so that there would be mixed use available inside the park, particularly residential development in the way of apartment complexes. And again, this was a very transparent, well thought out process. A lot of stakeholders were spoken to, a lot of developers, because if you're going to do it, will developers be interested? You know, Mitch and his members were very important in this, insofar as, because the idea at first seems a little weird, right? Like, hey, it's an industrial park and you're going to put apartments in it. But the more you look at it and the more you think about it, it's really not. So next slide, please. So changes occurred, right? The town of SMITHTOWN passed zoning approval changes. It permits developers to apply for, for special exceptions for mixed use buildings, where you could have retail or restaurants on the ground floor and you can have apartments on the upper floors. Only 13 parcels of 7 acres or larger and are able to apply at this point. But it really is an incredible development, which is going to put as many as 1,000 apartments inside the innovation park, and that will lead the transformation of the park. That will lead us closer towards that map we saw of what an ideal transformation of the park is going to look like. And next slide. And incredibly and importantly, the numbers are staggering, right? Just from this zoning legislation change and the ability to apply for these special exceptions, the immediate impact is expected to consist of 2,900 construction jobs, 180.7 million in construction earnings, and $472 million in construction spending. So just like that, and this is why it's so incredibly important that economic development is so incredibly important, is everybody that spent the last couple of years really trying to move this project forward has resulted in about $500 million in spending that can occur. And that is so great and important, especially now with COVID, and we're gonna need a jolt and a boost, and this is gonna be incredibly important. You know, post-construction, it's over $25 million in annual spending, and nearly 350 new jobs will be created with projected earnings of $15.6 million and spending of $45 million. And so really, it is the most exciting project I've been involved in my entire career. I've spent my entire life representing businesses and developers here on Long Island. But to have watched this project go from idea to action plan has been incredibly exciting, important, and the amount of collaboration and the amount of partnerships and support we have received across the board just shows how great Long Island is. It just shows how strong and smart and innovative the people here on Long Island are. And you know, I'm incredibly proud of the work that I've done. I'm incredibly proud of the work the HIA has done, but more importantly, I'm incredibly proud of all of you guys here on Long Island and our partners that have worked with this to show the rest of the country and the world that we can take an old, musty, dusty industrial park and be able to come up with the wherewithal to transform it into you know, a high-tech innovation park has been absolutely incredible. So thank you, everyone. We're certainly going to continue to report on the progress, but really super excited and couldn't appreciate the partnerships more.